Welcome to Half Wise. I'm Elisa, and this is a podcast about the choices that shape us. This is a show about the choices that don't always look smart in the moment, the bold, messy, sometimes slightly unhinged decisions we make when we step outside of our comfort zones, and only later realize we were wise. Today's story is about moving to a new country with no apartment, no job, and a whole lot of hope. It's a story about being young, learning resilience and self-worth, and discovering that sometimes the thing that truly works out isn't the reason you started at all. Welcome.
Thank you.
Today with me there is Amélie. Before we start to dive into your story and a little bit what was your half crazy, half wise decision, do you mind to tell a little bit more about yourself? Who is Amélie? Where everything started?
Yes. My name is Amélie. I'm originally French, even though you maybe don't realize with the accent or lack of. I'm a yoga teacher and breathwork facilitator, and I moved to the Netherlands about 7.5 years ago, which is we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah, but if we are looking at you like surrounding and a little bit the reality that shaped you, we have to go a little bit back, right?
Yeah.
Who was Amélie before she took this bigger than life decision to move abroad? And what were the motive back in the time?
So just before I moved abroad, so I took a big trip in North and Central America. So I just quit everything. So I was starting my master's degree, and for a lot of reasons, basically, I decided to quit my studies, go to work full time for a few months to make some money to be able to fund that trip. And to just travel for a few months. And, at the time I had this big ideas of, kind of finding yourself and maybe find love along the way or this kind of things. But initially, when I took this trip, the plan was to then go back, to the way things were and to go back to my studies and everything. And, things didn't go as planned because during that trip, I realized that maybe the studies I was doing, that's not something I wanted to work on anymore. So for many years, I was also like in that search of, okay, what am I going to do when I grow up with my life?
How old were you when you were in the midst of all this?
I was in my early 20s. So I think I started traveling when I was like 21. Yeah, 21, 22. So still a baby.
Still a baby. Were you the first one in your family to take this kind of big leap?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like nobody lived abroad in my family before. Nobody really traveled for an extensive period of time like this. So it was pretty much out there, and everybody thought I was crazy to go alone, to go in some countries that have this image of being very dangerous. So yeah, my mom thought that, they would find me in a ditch somewhere in Mexico or something. So yeah, it was also on that part, it was also quite the adventure to convince my family I wasn't crazy.
So you did not have any reference, somebody did it before you, and I was like, okay, you heard the stories and you want to go. So most of the thing was like an innate sense of wanting to go outside and explore.
Yeah, exactly. So like my plan initially was to go from Canada all the way to Ushuaia in Argentina, because I was studying Latin America. So I really also had this fascination for South America. But in the end, I stopped at Costa Rica because I did all Central. That was not planned. And I didn't do South America. But in the end, it all worked out perfectly.
The period I had the same. I was reading all these books from Sepúlveda and all the description, especially of Chile and
exactly.
Patagonia and everything. And I remember, like the fascination about this beautiful nature, the south of.
That's pretty much, why I did this trip and why I really wanted to go there. It's like all these Latin American authors, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Borges, Sepúlveda, all these authors that, I read. And there's this big imaginary around Latin America that really called me.
All right. So it was like a call from imagination and exploration and a will for adventure. So would you say that was your mindset around that time, early 20? Was anything else going on with you that you say, okay, that was the little
I think, like for me, like I really needed at some point, like just to get out of my daily life of, like student life. Also where I was, I think I was living in Paris at the time, so also far from my family. And, you're in your early 20s, so it was also like a lot of partying and this kind of things. And I wanted also to get out of that. And there was like really also like this kind of quest, to find yourself. And there is, I think, this cliche about, like when you travel and you explore the world, you're going to find yourself. And maybe for some people it's true, but I think now in hindsight, I believe that if you have problems at home, you're going to carry them in your backpack as well. But
they come with you.
Exactly. But I didn't know that at the time. So I thought that once I would come back, I would be a changed woman and everything would be fine. But yeah.
Well, you said that also there was a seek for clarity. So it was like, let me unplug from everything I know.
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, like there was also this, because you see like thanks to Hollywood, you also see like these travel movie with the hero, they find love, you Eat, Pray, Love, or other kind of movies like this. There is always this trope of, traveling and then like the romance. And I don't think it was like a big motivator, but it was still in the back of my mind of, you never know, like a cute backpacker somewhere,
All right.
So it was definitely.
It's part of the adventure as well, right?
For sure. For sure.
The adventure too. And also I think it's part of the element of when we travel, the feeling of feeling free, like somehow unapologetic also. And this one carries along in that period of time where you want to kind of find yourself, but also to manifest a little bit more who you are or you feel you are.
So also you're in a new place with people you've never seen in your life that you're probably never going to see ever again. So there is also like this thing of feeling disinhibited to, we can explore and be whoever you want, because nobody is going to think, oh my God, like, what are they going to think of me? Because, you don't care because you're not
it's just you're not going to see any these people anymore.
It's very freeing in that sense, for sure.
So you're 22. Nobody did anything like this in your family. You're like, Mom, I'm going on my own solo travel. Sorry, from Canada all the way down to the Perito Moreno.
Yes.
And what was the reaction of your mom at that time? It's like she said, okay.
I remember it like it was yesterday. So I remember I just called her and I said, okay, like I made the decision to quit my studies for a little while and to travel. And she started going batshit crazy on me on the phone. And she was like, that I was crazy, that I was ruining my life and blah, blah, blah. And like, so she was on the phone with me and I hear my stepfather behind her that hear the commotion of my mom going crazy on the phone. And I hear him asking like, what's going on? And she's like, she's going to tell you. And so she gave him the phone. And so he picks up the phone. He's like, okay, like what's going on? And I tell him, and he's like, oh, that's great, do it. And I hear my mom crazy, what why are you telling me that?
So it's like the funny things, like between when you say to your dad, when you say to your mom, when you do these things, my dad, when I did big trip, he was like, oh my God, I wish I can come with you. And my mother's always like, ah.
So I think she thought that my stepfather would also, give me a lesson of how it was such a bad idea. But in the end, so he managed to calm her down, because she was very mad at me, but it was out of fear. Like for her,
course,
it
for
was
protection.
She thought that first, the countries where I was planning to go were too dangerous, so she was scared of that. But she was also scared that I was, throwing my life away because I was quitting my studies, even though the plan initially was just to go back at my studies, because with my university I could take some kind of a sabbatical in between. Like I think I had a year and a half, and I could go back to it and just start where I left it. So that was the initial plan. So when we managed to get through to her with that, she was a bit more okay. She was still scared for my physical safety, but at least it was a bit better, so she could accept it a bit more. And I also told her at the time, I was like, I'm going to do it either way, with or without your approval. So you better support me, because I'm going to do it anyway. So it kind of set the tone.
So everything is set for traveling.
Yes.
So we are ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we land in Canada somehow.
Yes.
And then from there, what happened? How you end up on this side of the world?
Yeah. So I think at the beginning, I schemed through a lot of traveling blogs. So I kind of have mapped out the first few months, or at least places I wanted to see. So I landed in Toronto, then I went to Montreal because I had a friend in Montreal. Then I went to New York. That trip to New York was also with US customs and everything, was also another adventure.
We know. It's always a big question mark.
I almost got deported out of the US because I was just so naive that I thought that I could just show up in the US just with my ESTA and everything would be fine. No, you need other stuff.
Exactly.
And especially when you tell them, because for me, I was just so very honest. When they stop you at the custom and they ask you some question, and I tell them I quit my job in France and I'm just traveling. They were like, what? You quit your job? So they were already I had the illegal immigrant label on my forehead for them. So anyway. So then to New York, then I went to Vancouver, and then I did the whole west coast of the US before going to Mexico.
Okay.
And then all Central America.
Also a little bit the least beaten route, if you wish, is on the other side.
Yeah, at the time, there were Central America, Guatemala and everything. There was a lot of backpackers still.
Yeah, I think there are some countries that lived a little bit more of fame in the last years compared to, we're talking more than 10 years ago, probably something like that.
Yeah, now you see people a lot in El Salvador. At the time, it was starting, but it was still very niche.
Yeah.
Honduras, of course, nothing.
Yeah. Of
course, not of course, but it's not very tourist friendly now, but at the time, not at all. There were also a lot of political trouble at the time. Nicaragua was also kind of a off the beaten path at the time.
Yes.
Costa Rica was already pretty
it's always
famous.
But
that's the route I followed.
All and West Coast, and you'll end up in Costa Rica.
Yeah,
and that's I heard before is where you stopped. So you never made it to Patagonia, though.
No, exactly.
So what happened in between?
So at first, my plan was to do Mexico and then skip Central America to go to South America. What happened is that in Mexico, I met someone that I fell in love with. And so we ended up traveling for 3 months together with also other people. And because they were also going in Central America, I followed them. And in the end, it also made sense budget-wise, because, otherwise I was planning maybe to visit a friend in Brazil, but flying from Mexico to Brazil, it was a very expensive flight.
Yeah, correct.
Rather than just taking the, a shuttle to go to all the Central American countries. So it also made sense budget-wise, but it was also because I wanted to keep traveling with that person.
All right.
And in the end, after Costa Rica, like he kept traveling, and I went back to Europe.
All right.
First, making a little stop by his country before going back to France.
All right. So let's say like you did not complete your dream travel. That I might feel like, okay, this is the crazy thing. Do the first, big gap year, like the 1 year trip, larger than life experience that we read. I think all our generation is fascinated by this aspect. No, it's like it was one of my biggest regrets when I started to work, because I did not have any thing in between working and studying. I started to work as while I was still finishing my studies. So you stop by his country. So it's not your country. Then you go back to France. So we understand you're in the Netherlands now. So probably his country is this country. So you stop by to the Netherlands. Why? It's like you wanted to give it a shot to this person. Because sometimes when you have like, pass me like this kind of liaison when you're traveling, it's always like because they are part of the experience, right?
Yeah, and like we said at the beginning, everything is easy because you're never going to see anyone. So that's why, like very often, when people travel, they have multiple relationship, and they like sometimes they're short, of course, because but that's kind of part of the game. But for me, it was also, like while I was traveling, I got this feeling that I didn't want, whenever the trip would end, I didn't want to go back to France. I didn't want to go back to my country because I was tired of the mentality there, of the lifestyle there. And I love this more international environment of, speaking different language with people with different background, different cultures. While in France, like you're in France, you speak French. and it's not very international, and especially at that time. So we speak of like 8 years ago or something. I think now it's a little bit more, but at the time, like nobody really spoke English, even in big cities like in Paris where I was living at the time, not so much. And I think I thought that people like were very closed off, and like was very narrow-minded. So I knew either way that I wanted to move somewhere else in Europe.
Did you feel at the time that you were fitting in the place that you were living in?
I don't know. I think it's more like when the kind of traveling changed me in that sense, that, like Paris is a huge city.
Yeah,
and I remember when I came back, even though I only moved back 6 months before I moved to the Netherlands after my trip, it took me like months to not feel like anxiety in the metro. Also because Paris metro is just creepy as fuck. But it was like just also like a very different rhythm and a very different life with very different people, and it felt like just going back to my old life, and it's like wearing a sweater that doesn't really fit anymore.
Yeah, that's why kind of breaks up. Like a little bit, you're wearing a tight sweater, something that you feel like you're outgrown somehow.
Exactly. But already before I went back to France for a few months while I was still traveling, I was actively thinking, okay, I want to move somewhere else. And, before I met that guy, I never really heard of the Netherlands. Besides, like, when I was in high school, I remember the only thing I would hear from the Netherlands is soon as people would turn 18 in my high school, they would go to Amsterdam to just get wasted and just smoke weed. So for me, like that was the image that I had of the Netherlands. I was like, okay, like so I was never really curious to visit the Netherlands because that's image I had of it. Which of course now I know there was so much more to it, but at the time, like when you're 18, the only thing people think about is just like smoking joints. So yeah. So I learned about the Netherlands through that person. I was like, oh, okay, like the Netherlands sounds great. And of course, at the time, like the big country in Europe was also Germany.
Yeah, correct.
It was like very economically
stable
and everything. But the thought of having to learn German was also kind of a deterrent. I studied Spanish, so I never spoke German in my life. While I learned that in the Netherlands, everybody speaks English. And of course, it's always better to learn the language, but you can, especially in big cities, you can pretty much get by speaking English, which 7.5 years later, it's still not speaking great Dutch, but
but it's like gives you also the possibility, like I think in the Netherlands is very open in that sense. So you get exposed to a lot of diversity if you're up for the task to simply go out there and meet different people. And in general, like as you say, you can get by with English in big cities pretty much. So we know that this one is not your half-wise decision, was not like to go for your trip. So your the thing that really was the big jump in the dark, like the big leap of faith, was like to actually take a chance on a person that you met in a different environment, because like meeting somebody on holidays is very different than somebody in their daily life. And then you decide, okay, I want to try, I want to give it a chance. How was the setting? How was let's say, the start of this adventure, of this new adventure?
So basically, like I kind of try to frame it as I want to live in another country. A new country sounds great, so I'm going to move here. I was definitely lying to myself that I was not moving because I was, I wanted to make this relationship that wasn't a relationship. This guy wasn't my boyfriend at all. But I would hope that, with time we would realize how amazing I was, and it would pan out.
You think it was fitting still in the imaginary of the love?
Exactly. And also because we can go deeper on this later, but I had this belief that if I had tried harder, they would finally love me, And
if I show enough for myself, I prove myself, so conditional love, if you wish, they would realize what a catch I am, and they will stick with me.
Exactly. But like now in hindsight, I mean, this guy must have think like this girl is crazy, like it's giving crazy stock of. Now that I think about it, you met this girl you just wanted to hook up with in Mexico, and now she's moving in your city. Like, what the heck?
And you are like, please look at me, I'm great,
exactly.
Realize it, how good I am. But would you think, like, also now with the work that you do you think is something that a lot of people believe? Do you realize with your clients that there is a lot of this, like of one wanted this desire to being seen, right?
For sure.
Being loved, but at the same time, like this idea that love is conditional.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like there is like I see in a lot of people this thing that love has to be earned, and you have to reach a certain standard or certain ideal to even be worthy of love, and that you have to prove yourself to be worthy of love, and that you're never enough the way you are. So you always have to perform, you always have to prove, always have to be more to finally get that love. And that's something I indeed see a lot, and that also resonate with my own story, because like for a big part of my life I felt that I was looking to be chosen by others, and I was really tying my own worth to people choosing me, to people validating me.
All right. So let's say this decision, like this choice that is crazy and risky, and putting actually your heart on the line, because that's also part of it, right? Was not just a practical choice to move in another country for good for somebody that, as you say, like you wanted to be chosen by, but also was an emotional risk. Was like not say half-wise emotionally, because I was not okay. I go abroad and experience the Netherlands. This place is more like I'm here because my inner self is craving some kind of emotional filling, if you wish.
But I think at the time, like I was kind of, lying to myself a little bit in the sense that I was not making this relationship the primary reason for me moving there.
That's your logical mind.
Exactly. Like my like the reason I would give everyone was like, I really want to go there and I really want to go in another country. And it so happens that guy I fancy also lived there. And it took me a while to say, girl, like just be honest. He was the primary reason you went there, because you could have chosen any other country and you chose like that little piece of land here.
Looking on the North Sea.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, I think it's like sometimes is a way that we use to protect our heart as well. Like, we tend to tap in our logical mind to find reasoning why our decision is worthy to be pursued, because the rest sounds like a little bit shaky also,
and because it also sounds more reasonable. Like, again, if I tell you, like, I just met this random guy in Mexico 3 months ago and I'm going to move in this country, people are going to think like, that's crazy. That's creepy.
Are you okay?
Yeah, exactly. While saying, oh yeah, like, I want to experience another culture and live abroad and multiculturalism and this kind of things. Oh, great. Cool. So it's also like, I think, more socially acceptable and more like it has a nice little bow compared to, I feel very insecure and I need this guy validation to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
Sounds very different.
Yeah, indeed, right? And this is part sometimes of a lot of decision that we make, that there is different layers. There is the one that we say to others, the one that we say to ourselves, the one that we actually feel, and also how is perceived what we do. Now, you're in the Netherlands. First time you heard about the Netherlands, like me personally. It's like you heard about like smoking, mushrooms, stuff like that. So first week you're here, big leap. I kind of stopped. You say like, you decided pausing the uni, and I assume now the uni is it's still in the back of your mind, but there is
because at the time, like when I decided to move there, I already knew that I didn't want to go back to my university and to my degree.
So it was
already a lot of change since when I first took the decision to make the trip.
All right. So uni is not there anymore. Is a faraway past.
Exactly.
So there is this new adventure, this new environment. How was the first weeks you were there? What were expectation versus reality?
Yeah, right? Because of course, for me, like, I thought that because, this person was the only person I knew in the country.
All right.
So I thought that, maybe it would host me the first few weeks, the time for me to find an apartment. He didn't want to, which, I still get, because it was probably still thinking like, what is this girl doing? So
why I picked her?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what kind of situation I put myself into? Which is fair. Like in hindsight, I'm like, fair enough. I'm like, sorry. Sorry for being creepy.
Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, but sorry. And sorry. So I ended up in a hostel, like very nice hostel and everything. I think, because I moved at the end of August, and I think throughout the summer, I think I went to the Netherlands like for a short period of time, a couple times, to try to find a job or something. So I think, within a few days, I started as a waitress, and, within a couple of weeks, I schemed through so many rental websites and, Facebook groups to find a room. So I finally found an apartment after a couple of weeks. And moved there for like a few months. But of course, I had blown most of my money while traveling. And as a waitress, I was making very little money because I had like what we call a 0-hour contract. So basically they would call you when they need you. So I was working very little. So I was really like just scraping by. And I think like this lasted like a month, this job as a waitress. And I lost this job. I did like some phone interviewing for a month or something, or 3 weeks. before I secured the job I would keep for like 5 years as a customer support agent. And then I grew in the company, but at least I had
like
better
a foundation.
Yeah, exactly. And I could make a bit of money because this first couple of months, the main thing was really about like that financial struggle of, okay, I need to pay rent, I need to pay transport that are excessively expensive in this country.
Yeah, correct.
So it was not about
one of my first shocks when I arrived here. Like, wow, that's expensive for public transportation.
Exactly. So it was not so much about the romance this first couple of weeks, but it was really about like this. Okay, like I need to settle and to find my footing in this new country, which also something that made it difficult, but also I think that helped me is that after this first couple months, this guy was also having some personal issues. And so we stopped talking for a few months, for like maybe 3 months or something.
All right.
And we went no contact, which also in a way, like for me, I think helped me to say, okay, like I don't have this person to rely on to help me with some stuff, even just to translate some administrative stuff.
Yeah,
so I had to get by myself, and I had to, be resilient and to be creative to try to find solution to understand things, to make my own circles, which also was very important for me even before I moved in. It's like I don't want to rely solely on that guy and his friends to have a social life. I wanted to have my own friend, to know the city by myself, to not be totally dependent on him while moving there.
Yeah, I think also this one is like really important in terms of finding also your own dimension, because you're shaping a little bit your reality, right?
Yeah.
When you're there, when you are in a new place, you're building your connection, but also shaping your reality. It will look like.
Yeah, and also just building a new life from scratch. So for me, it was important that this was my own, and it was because, I was still lying to myself that I was not moving for that person.
No, I know.
So for me, it was very important that I had my own circle. So
it was fitting in the story that you were telling to yourself.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I'm here for myself. So if I'm here for myself, means that I'm here for myself. Therefore, I am capable to take care of myself. I have my own circle. This person is in my life, but is not the main reason.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost to justify ourselves.
Exactly.
I think it's in case of failure as well, right? In case things
exactly.
don't go as expected. And eventually in your case, that's turned out to be. So which point, at which point you realized this situation could not last, or like with this guy, or you have to...
It took way too long, because it took, say, about 3 years of situationship, where basically we would do a lot of things, like if I was in a relationship with that person, but I didn't have the title, I didn't have the commitment, I didn't do a lot of the things that you would do as a couple, but still, like we would do all the rest. His friends would know about me. We would kiss and hold hands in front of his friends, so they knew. But yeah, like we couldn't talk about the future. We couldn't make plans, and for a very long time, I was, happy with those crumbs. And I was literally thinking to myself, that's better than nothing. Because at the end, I was thinking, oh, even if I don't have the title, we still do all these things. So that's going to mean something. That's going to be worth something, right?
So it comes back to what we said at the beginning. He will realize what the catch that I am, and eventually all this crumble will turn in a full
bakery.
In a full bakery. Will turn in a full bread somehow.
Yeah. But I think, it's around when COVID hit that I started to realize things, because during the first lockdown, so in 2020, we were seeing each other a little bit less because of his elderly mother. So of course, to protect her, so limit contact and everything. And I started to realize that, okay, like this is, it's been 3 years that I know this person, and things are not going to change. And I think I started to kind of fall out of love. So we were still seeing each other and things were still the same. But I was also thinking that, because he started planning trip. So in the middle of COVID, he was still planning to go somewhere and to travel because he had a lot of experience with traveling. And there were still some countries that were open at the time. So he was planning to leave the Netherlands. And for me, I didn't have the finances to do the same. And I remember thinking, like, there was a part of me that would be sad to have him live, and thinking that, like, it would be very hard to kind of end this relationship, even though, like, we knew from the beginning that's how it would end. But I think a part of me was also looking forward to be free, because I thought, I think I wasn't able to pull the plug by myself, but, kind of life pulled the plug because he left the country.
So again, you could tell to yourself that was okay to end because he left the country.
Yeah,
so your rational mind will have.
Yeah, but there was still like a part of me that kind of realized that something wasn't okay, and that I started to realize, okay, like, you deserve more, and like, this is not what love looked like, because love is also like a mutual feeling, and like, or at least in a relationship, it goes both ways, and it's not you that is doing all the emotional labor and trying to reach out to someone choose you back and meets you halfway.
Correct.
But yeah, I think there was still some comfort in this relationship, because you get some affection, etc. You get some attention, some validation, and so yeah, I think I hold on to this as much as I could, but still knowing that, okay, there's more to it, and I deserve more. And when he lives, I kind of, will be free from this from this spell, even if the person was not.
Yeah, I get it.
Like,
I get it.
I would, yeah, like, there was no, like, manipulation or anything, but yeah. I can move on.
Yeah, you can move on. It's almost like he can cut this string that is keeping, you like kind of connected with him. You spoke before about no longer, or like at least for a long time, seeing yourself or like valuing yourself through the eye of man, and then eventually not anymore. What was the change? What helped you to change the paradigm in this case, and now also this change is shaping the work that you are doing right now?
Yeah. So, of course, like, this quote unquote relationship or situationship, like, lasted a long time. And it was kind of a very slow awakening until eventually, like, he left the country, and I was like, okay, this wasn't good for me, or just any of us for that matter. And I deserve more. And so I think I took maybe over a year where I was like, okay, I spent my whole life looking for validation from others, and especially men, to feel chosen, to feel loved, to feel worthy. So I took like over a year and a half break of dating anything. And it felt like, for the first time of my life, I wasn't dating anyone, or I wasn't crushing on anyone. And I wasn't even looking or pursuing anyone. I just wanted to, like, just cultivate that sense of self-love, and really, like, focus on myself and building, my own confidence and my own self-trust without all this external input. And after a year and a half, like, I started here and there dating a little bit, already feeling a bit more secure. So I was way more discerning, when someone's behavior was not okay, when I was not feeling treated the way I deserved or the way I wanted. And so it was way easier for me to walk away from something that didn't feel right for me, instead of trying to push to make them change and realize,
to fix it somehow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before we were we were speaking about one thing that you do now when you meet. Now you have, like you have a relationship, but let's say before you will be with your actual partner, you will have a little thing that you will do to test if the relationship was good for you. Do you mind to share it?
Yeah. So something at some point, like I also realized, because of course, like usually when you have this kind of self-worth issues, like a lot of things, it also stems from some kind of things that happen in your childhood and how your attachment and how your relationship to others was built in childhood.
Or how you learn love.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And, I knew from a very long for a very long time, okay, like for me, like where all these things came from. So I also did a lot of inner child healing, etc. And something I started to do, so I kind of did it also retroactively with ex-partners, but I also did it with my current partner before we actually, came together when we just started dating, is to visualize my inner child with that person and to see how my inner child behave. Do they feel safe, or are they a bit fearful or shy, or are they playful? Do they feel comfortable around that person, or do they feel that they have to behave a certain way? And for example, with my current partner, so I did that at the very beginning, so we barely knew each other. And I remember feeling like that my inner child was very happy and joyful and goofy around him. And now that we are together for over a year now, and everything is going great, and I couldn't dream of a better partner. Like that feeling is still very present. Like I feel like we are very goofy together, and I've never laughed so much and so hard every single day with one person. And so it really shows me that that I think this is a good. There's something to it, that this thing of with your inner child, because I think if your inner child feels safe with someone, it says something very important about that relationship. And yeah, so now like I kind of use it as a little test
Meter.
for my
Exactly,
a little meter to kind of test how I really feel about someone, and how, because it also plays with not just with your conscious awareness, but more like subconscious things, which drives a lot of our behaviors, of course. So it's very revealing.
Yeah, I really, really liked it when you mentioned before, because what you say is like sometimes is like a lot of the things that we do or like we perceive or we feel can be connected, can be like brought back to that little us that learn some patterns, some behavior in very, in quite early on, and we see somehow the world also through this kind of lenses, right? So we can reshape it, we can understand it, but there is something that is a little bit more primal. That is how we respond to people and how this part of us responds to the situation. Now, you're here. Your halfway decision was to move here, and you're still here.
Yeah, so, exactly. 7.5 years later, I'm still here.
Can you share with us and with everybody that is listening, like what you do now and how this path unfolded for you and shaped you in the person that you are today?
Yeah. So right now, like if we talk about career-wise, like I said at the beginning, I'm teaching yoga, but I think the one thing that truly lights me up right now is to facilitate breathwork. And so I work with groups in breathwork sessions, or sometimes I also mix it with cacao ceremony, and also with one-on-one client. And I notice that a lot of the clients that I have and that come to me sometimes share a lot of similarities with my own story, which of course often happens, like in this business, that you often help past versions of yourself in a way.
Yeah, somehow, yes.
And so, but for me, it really helps me first, to empathize with them, because I'm like, okay, like, I've been there. So I understand what you're feeling. And so I think this already, like having this level of connection really helps, because sometimes if you have someone that has something that is so foreign to you, sometimes it can also be a little bit harder. And it doesn't mean that, what I did to heal is a one size fit all and it's going to work for them. But it's still, something interesting to explore. And also just to build that rapport with someone else. So because you can really relate to, where they are, and to, the pain they're going through, and you can also know, what they are aspiring to.
Yes, correct.
So for me, that's been really, really helpful in that sense, that you can really speak to someone because you've been there, and in a way, like you walk in their shoes before.
I think there is also like a very genuine sense of wanting to help. Because not just because you walked in their shoes, but you know that there is, a better version of themselves waiting at the end of the journey, at the end of the path. So there is like this honest willing to gift them with this best or better, let's say not best, but better version of themselves.
Yeah. Because how terrible it feels, to live with this insecurity, to live with this anxiety, to doubt yourself, etc., and how it bleeds in every area of your life. Because of course, right now we talked a lot about relationships, but it also bleeds into your career, your work, your finances, your friendships, your relationship with your family. So it's not just one thing. Like it's really like has, it's like a web, and so it really ripples in all areas of your life. So if you start to heal these things, you're not just going to have better relationships, but you're also going to improve all these areas around it. Like it has this ripple effect again, but more positive, of course.
Yeah.
And I've seen, like client, for example, that felt so insecure, and so that has such this low self-worth, that kind of, on the reverse, that what I experienced, that for me, like I was kind of, bearing my heart out and being like maybe too vulnerable to others, because I wanted that connection. For some people, it's the other way around. They will close off, and as soon as people get too close, like nope, and they just like opt out of the relationship, because it's too confronting, and it's so hard for them to remove the mask, because otherwise, like, okay, like if they see the real me, they're not gonna like it, and they're gonna leave me.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the other way around. I thought, okay, like I need to make myself so perfect, to be such the cool girl or the good girl, etc., so they would love me. Because if I'm not getting their approval, then they will leave me.
I think it's a different type. If you bring it down, it's a different type of acting.
Yeah.
Right? It's a different role. I close up, I build up walls, or like I show like the best version that the person wants. Like, there are even some songs like, I will become what you want me to be, like in that sense. But eventually you're wearing just different type of mask, but the end result is the same.
Yeah, you're playing a role to get someone's approval. But like it's of course, like maybe it's different attachment style. Like for some people, when people come too close, or they will flee, or some people, they will become very anxious and clingy, which is what happened for me.
Yeah. So it's beautiful to hear also how this decision that felt like chaotic, a little bit maybe rushed, if you wish, brought you to a version of yourself that is not just more mature, but is also able to help others, starting from this Yeah, essentially, I think is an experience, is a decision, but in reality is a series of decisions that took place in that period of your time. So do you think that messy decisions can still be the right doorway for things?
Yeah, definitely. Because, when you make a decision, you rarely know all the implications that this decision can have. And for me, like it's kind of a little butterfly effect, because if I never, like, even beyond before I took the trip, like stuff that happened in my university, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have made a decision to take the trip. If I hadn't taken the trip, I wouldn't have met this guy. If I hadn't met this guy, I wouldn't have moved here. If I hadn't had moved here, I wouldn't have start doing more yoga and get dive deeper into spirituality and this kind of things, and breath work, which is, for me, like, that was the one thing that made a big difference in my healing journey, where I could really feel something shift also.
All right.
In that regard, and I could really pass a threshold in terms of how I approach my relationships. So, like this one initial decision, it sparked like a kind of little cascade of tiny other choices that
100%.
led to this one thing. And of course, you can trace it back to there, but you could never foresee that, of course, when you took the initial decision.
No. And just, but indeed, it's amazing sometimes, like decision that we will label all the time completely like crazy, and this is the reason also of this podcast, because I met so many people that took like this larger than life decisions that in a conversation or a colloquial sense, people will label simply crazy, right? And eventually shape the person that they are, brought them way more than what they expected, right? In the very first place. And eventually they turn to be quite wise for the spirit, the person they are, aware at the time, what they needed in that moment. Yeah. So, so sometimes we have the feeling to romanticizing also, the leap is like, okay, it's gonna be like, what you say, like, I'm gonna meet, la, 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 I don't know, this kind of thing.
Like an Hollywood movie.
Yeah, this is something that somebody's gonna has to do something about them, and they bring.
We're gonna burst the myth.
We have to burst the myth about like all this, but this is what worked out in your story, right? What didn't? There was some part of you that something that didn't work out.
I mean, of course, that relationship that wasn't one and didn't work out, but for the best, because I'm still very grateful for this person, because it taught me so much. Like when I arrived there, I was 22. I was very naive in a way. For me, I was a little bit in la la land. I was like, oh, I'm going to move there. I'm going to find a job. I'm going to make a life here. I'm going to have this amazing relationship. And then we're going to travel the world together. Girl, no. So I think at the time, like, I was really living in a movie, and I thought that everything would work out. And it still worked out, just in a very different way.
Oh, okay.
For my relationship, but also just for my own personal growth, and all the things that I learned about myself. And it's not just about that one tiny decision. Sometimes it's also just about just growing up and your brain finally coming to full maturation. Because at 22, your brain is not fully formed.
We should refrain to take decisions before what is 25, 28?
I think it's 25 for women, and I think it's a little bit later for men.
Is it? Later?
Yes.
Little bit later? Joking. But I think...
Or not.
Or not. No, I'm joking. I think it's 25, more or less. Yeah. We are coming to the end of today, like this chat we had together. I want to thank you for opening your heart, and to also sharing a story that I hope and I generally think can motivate so many others, especially if they are in crossroads. Maybe they are somewhere because they took this leap and they're trying to figure it out if it was a good decision or not. And to just know that everything comes back to our self-worth, to kind of use that lens when we are in difficult situations. We have a kind of a signature question for the podcast, and is what it means for you to be wise.
So I'd say like it's not about, making the right decision where, you're going to have the perfect consequences and you will get everything you hope for when you make that decision. But it's, I think, being able also to learn from it. So, you can, like you said earlier, like you can make a decision that is, crazy on paper, and perhaps that very likely will not pan out the way you initially envisioned. But what can you learn from it, and what can you make out of this? Because maybe this thing is going to be very messy at the start, but how can you learn something from it? How can you grow? How can you become a better person? How can you heal more? How can you support others from all the things you learn along the way? So yeah, I think like our wisdom it's not about perfection, but it's about being able to adapt and be flexible and to learn from our experiences.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you,
you.
Amélie. Thank you so much for sharing your story so with honesty and with so much, I'd say like with so much heart, because I really felt your heart coming through the story. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. This has been Half Wise, stories of choices that shape us. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the podcast and share it with someone who might need to hear this story today.